Hello, and welcome to another episode of Adamo Baseball, where I'm your host, Adamo. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the Rays manager, Kevin Cash. Did you know that he played before he was a manager? I didn't. Not before I started to do my research for this episode. But yeah, he almost completed the American League East cycle, that being playing for every single team in the division. The only team he did not play for was the Orioles. In fact, he only played for one team outside of the division, and that was the Houston Astros for, let's look it up real fast, make sure I'm not telling you the wrong answer, 20 games. In which case, he was traded to the Red Sox. He was a catcher his entire career, which wasn't long, but it was long enough to at very least, say he played in the bigs. But he did. So he was a manager from 2002 to 2004. Did I say manager? He was a player. He was a catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays from 2002 to 2004. In 2005, he played his 1 year with the Rays. And at that time, the Rays weren't necessarily that good, but he actually got to play with his hometown team. He was born December 6th, 1977, in Tampa Bay. So yeah, he's a hometown kid. He played high school in Gaither High School in Tampa, Florida. He went to college at Florida State. While that's not in Tampa, it might as well be with how close he is. Dude's a Florida guy. He's been Floridaing his whole life, but in the good way. Until he got to the bigs. So at age 24, he got to play with the Toronto Blue Jays from 2002 to 2004. He was never a regular time starter, okay? The most games he played in one season was 61, and that was as a backup. Like, his whole career is mostly that of a backup. His whole career, he hit 183, and he had 12 home runs and 117 hits. Now, he was a catcher, so bear that in mind. You're not going to have a lot of really good offensive stats if you're playing catcher. That's fine. I think I made it pretty clear throughout my entire history of the channel that you don't expect to have a lot of great years hitting as a catcher. And then, yeah, he played his one season in Tampa in 2005 when they were still called the Devil Rays. They weren't the Rays at the time, they were the Devil Rays. It was actually, I think, 2 years later when they changed the moniker. And I don't know why. Maybe it was because of Steve Irwin. I don't know. But, yeah, he did play there. 2006, it's like he just dropped off the face of the earth. There's nothing on here about where he went in 2006. 2007, however, I don't know if he got a ring for it or not, but he played 12 games with the Red Sox. And he was also a Red Sox in 2008. And in 2008, that was his 1 year that he got to go to the playoffs. He did get at-bats in the playoffs in 2008, where he lost to his past and future team, the Rays. Then, 2009, for 1 year only, he was a Yankee, where he played a grand total of 10 games. I know it feels like I'm breezing through a lot of this, but that's because there's nothing particularly outstanding, if you will. Though, when he was a Yankee, he had his highest batting average of his career at .231, which is more what you would expect for a catcher. Even though he only had 28 at-bats, That's more what you expect for a catcher's batting average. Oh, fun fact, he had 0 triples and 0 stolen base attempts. True story. 2010, in 2010, he played with the Houston Astros when they were still in the National League Central. And so there is a little quinky dink to mention here with his time at the Astros. He played 20 games. One of those 20 games, he pitched an inning. Lifetime ERA of 9. But he did pitch 1 inning where he gave up 1 run. Not a lot of catchers can say that. And later the year, he was traded to the Red Sox, where he played like 29 games, and after that he called it quits. His whole career, he only played, he played 8 seasons, and he had 714 career at-bats. Sorry, plate appearances. He had 641 at-bats. How many walks did he have? 49. For his career, he had 49 walks. So his playing career, that's really all that there is to really bring up. However, it's not as a player that he's made his name. It's as a manager. He retired from playing baseball in 2010. He became the Tampa Bay Rays manager in 2015, where he really made a name for himself. 2015, he led the Rays to an 80-82 record. It's a hair under 500. You might as well call it 500 because you got 80 wins. It really doesn't matter. You had a good year. And frankly, that's all that really matters. They had a good year. And then 2016 was the down year. The Rays only went 68-94. So, yeah, not really great. Or not a good year. But, fun fact, he challenged 49 times that year, and he won 29 of them. So for the highest point in his career, he won 59% of his challenges. And as a manager, that is kind of a big deal, because one of the things you need to be able to do is know when to say, hey, you got this call wrong, this guy was safe, or this guy was out. That's actually one of the big deals that people like to focus on as a manager, because it's very important. You need to know when to do that. So, yeah, he's hovered like right around 500 as a manager in that regard, but obviously that's only a small piece of what you do. The whole point to your team is to make the most with what you have. In 2017, there was a significant improvement back to 80 and 82. Most people might think, third year's payoff year, that's whenever you need to show that, you can win. Well, he hadn't really made a name for himself, and he did get the Rays going back in the right direction in 2017. 2018 was when he really made a name for himself. This went under a lot of radars in 2018, mostly because the Red Sox had 108 wins and the Yankees had 100 flat. So a lot of people really didn't know that the Rays won 90 games. It was the first time they won 90 games since, I think it was 2012, 2011 maybe? I think it was 2012. And he finished third in the American League Manager of the Year voting. Like, he took a team that 2 years prior only won 68 games and turned them to a winner in a division that was very difficult. I mean, yeah, a lot of those wins were going to come against the O's because the O's lost 115 that year. That doesn't really matter because he made the Rays a winner. And that was the first time in a long time that he made that team good, or that the Rays were really talked about in most baseball circles. He really brought them to the forefront. They didn't make the playoffs because the field was just too competitive that year. The 5 seed in the playoffs, I think, was Houston. Yeah, Houston was the 5 seed in the playoffs that year. No, that's wrong. The Astros were the number 2 seed. It was out of the West, the team that the Yankees played in the postseason, or in the one-game playoff. But Kevin Cash had the Rays moving in the right direction with the possibility to move forward. And that's exactly what happened. Because in 2019, the Rays won 96 games. That was the best team up to that point that they'd put on the field since 2008. 2008 was the first time they went to the World Series. Well, in 2019, they were able to do some damage. Because, yes, I think that they were the... Let me double check. Make sure that I'm not saying this wrong. Okay, it doesn't actually say it here. However, in the postseason, his record was 3-3. Okay, it does say it here. They went to the playoffs as a wild card team. They won the wild card game, and they lost the American League Division Series 3-2. That was the furthest they'd gone in the playoffs since 2008. In fact, it was the first time they won a postseason series since then. Because 2008, they went to the World Series. Well, a wild card game does technically count as a postseason series. So he got the Rays the postseason series. He got them that. Then last season, while I like to talk about 2020 being an aberration for the Rays, that is not the case. They were one of the 2 best teams in baseball the whole year. Not just the Dodgers being the best team last year. Yes, they were the best team. They won the World Series. But the 2 best teams in baseball squared off in the World Series. That doesn't happen nearly as often as you might think. And frankly, when I get there with my Monday show, I'll be more specific on that. But yeah, it was a 60-game abbreviated season. The Rays went 40-20. That's winning 2 out of every 3 games. That is very uncommon. Like, most years you finish, or if it was an abbreviated season and they won 2 out of every 3 games, they would have finished the season with 108 wins. That's how good they were. They didn't have a chance to play the whole season because sometimes you just can't. But they did have a great year last year. All of their stars were shining. They had the lowest payroll in Major League Baseball. I want to emphasize that. They had the lowest payroll in baseball, and they had the best record in the American League. They're usually in competition with Oakland for that moniker. They had it last year. In fact, I think it was Clayton Kershaw got paid more than the entire Rays roster. So, yeah, it mattered. And while the Rays aren't necessarily off to a hot start this year, they're not off to a bad start either. I mean, they're 10-8. They're doing pretty well. Yes, I'm recording this day of release, and I don't want to get too specific on that. However, I want to emphasize this fact, if nothing else. 6 years into his tenure as a manager at one place, he won a pennant. Not a lot of coaches can say that. In fact, most managers cannot say that they have a pennant under their belt. He can, let alone in 6 years. And they were 2 wins away from winning it all. It's not like 2008 where the Phillies just destroyed them. They went toe-to-toe with the Dodgers, and Kevin Cash is the reason that they were able to do that. And I fully stand by that. And look, I don't always agree with a lot of the decisions that he makes. He does do some weird things with pitching. He does do the whole opener thing, which I don't think baseball should get rid of it, but I don't particularly like it either. But then again, what he's doing is working. And frankly, with all the talent that they had leave over this past offseason, that they just let walk because they can't afford them, the fact that they're playing a little over 500 ball right now, that's kind of a big deal. It really does show this that it's not just the players, the manager actually knows what he's doing. And Kevin Cash is a prime example of that. And yeah, I know I did a brief breakdown of his career, but this is one of those hometown kids that's really, well, he's not a kid. He's in his 40s now. But this is one of those hometown guys that's really made it work. I mean, I do like him as a manager. It's not just, yeah, he's in the division where I like 2 of the teams a lot, and he's not one of those 2, or he's not managing one of those 2 teams. I got nothing against the Rays, and all the more power to him. And I hope him many years of prosperity, whether it's in or out of Tampa Bay. And those are my thoughts on the Tampa Bay Rays. And if you'd like to let me know your thoughts on the Rays, and specifically Kevin Cash, you can let me know down in the comments below. Or you can let me know on Twitter. Specifically, if you're on my podcast, either come over to my channel, let me know in the comments down below, or let me know on Twitter. I don't have a lot of followers, but I don't use it a lot. But if you do say something, I will see it. So, with that being said, thank you for listening and watching. Cheers until next time.